Welcome to Living Zen. I'm Eshu, and this is where we explore the guts of Zen practice, not just the big moments of insight, but how we actually digest them and integrate them and let them shape our lives over the long haul. Thanks for joining me. Let's dive in. It's an interesting feeling, returning to the Zendo after a time away. It's wonderful to have old friends, old companions on the way, sitting today, feeling of simultaneously something really familiar and solid, and at the same time something new, kind of exciting. Lately I've been really reflecting on the cycle, the time, the sort of cycle of time in the context of practice, of a life of practice. And I think something that I'm only really starting to have insight into now is the scope of a life of practice, the kind of time that it takes. I think for everybody, really, when we take up this practice of Zazen, this way, just sitting, even from early days, doesn't take much sitting for the practice, the power of this practice, and particularly sort of when you're engaged in what I can call like ritual tools, or ritual technology, something that's been handed down and refined for hundreds and even thousands of years, is that it's very effective. It can kind of turn things on. It can open us up. We can have, from the very beginning, very powerful insights and experiences, realizations about ourselves, about the world that we live in, about the nature of the cosmos itself. And I don't know if it's just human nature or if it's the way that it's often presented everywhere, from the texts to movies. There's so much focus on that moment of realization, that insight. I got it! The Buddha's awakening is all the news. But I think for anybody who's been practicing for some time, that moment of awakening, sudden to be sure, it's really not the big show. I mean, it is in some ways. It's often shocking or destabilizing. But the guts of practice are what happens afterwards. How we digest what we've seen or experienced or witnessed. How it's transformed from a momentary kind of multi-sensory or maybe no sensory moment into an integrated expression of that realization through our lives. In some ways, it's like witnessing or walking with someone sharing the experience of birth, watching a child be born or giving birth to a child. Maybe it's also like walking or sharing an experience of death, being with somebody who dies. On the one hand, the experience is very momentary. Maybe more so for fathers momentary than mothers, but nonetheless, it's brief, the actual birth part. Miraculous. I was reflecting on this just this past week, my son's 25th birthday. 25 years ago, really? Witnessing a human being being born. What was that like? He asked, what was it like? I 25 years later, I still can't tell you. I still can't find the words to express the complexity of what it is to witness that. Momentary, not there one moment, all of a sudden, human. And the implications, the work, the consequences in the sense of like everything from that moment flows out from that moment. My first teacher used to say, simultaneously at the moment of birth, the child is born, and the mother is born, and the father is born, all together. The witnessing of a death is, for me, very similar. Momentary. A person is there, and you can say, oh, they're weakening, or oh, it's getting more faint, but they're there. And then, not. And the consequences and the ripples of that stone being thrown in the pond, they continue for the rest of our lives and even beyond. The practice of Zazen, this awakening practice, these experiences of insight or realization or awakening, for me they're very similar to this kind of experience, momentary. Even if you have an experience that lasts for a day or a week or a month, I haven't known too many people like that. But nonetheless, powerful. How is it integrated? How is it transformed from this inexpressible thing into a concrete way of manifesting your life that's fundamentally transformed in some way? And that's what I've been really reflecting on, is how much time it takes, how much effort it takes. And there's things that we can do in our lives to help us to integrate those awakenings, those experiences, to help us integrate them. And even so, I come to believe that there's actually maybe a biological pace that goes along with it. Something like digestion, or as Genjo Roshi likes to compare to composting. And with both of those things, also you can do things that help it, like you can really work on your gut biome, and you can work on the sort of conditions for composting to make things happen more smoothly and more quickly. But I don't know of anything that will help you digest instantly, compost instantly. I used to think that a person could just take up this practice and just go straight through for their whole life. Super, dial up the dial, just keep going for their whole life. But in a lot of ways, Zen, that powerful ritual technology, it's like being hungry for wisdom, being hungry for that insight, that awakening, the liberation from suffering, and walking into a buffet, an all-you-can-eat buffet. And you can think when you arrive, right on, I can have all that I can eat. That's a very interesting sort of turn of phrase, all that you can eat. How much can you eat, really? Have you ever had the experience of going to a place where there was just a spread that was unbelievable of all just fantastic food, and you sit down and you're so hungry and you start eating and eating and eating, and you, at some point it dawns on you like, I'm going past the threshold a little bit here, that's fine. You sort of undo your belt and you keep going and you keep going. Eventually you come to a point where there's a little bit of a turn, where all of a sudden you're looking at that same food that an hour ago looked like made your mouth water, and it's making your mouth water now for a totally different reason. Do you want another one? No. I got to digest. Maybe I've got to go for a walk. Maybe I need to sleep it off. Maybe I need to take some Alka-Seltzer. I used to get really sad when people would come to the Zen Center and get really engaged in practice and then leave practice, seemingly. Walk away. And people would have big awakening experiences at sessions and walk away. Even after they said, oh, this practice has transformed my life. Oh, there's nothing more important than the Dharma. And I'd say, oh, it's a pity. That wasn't until it happened to me. Practicing for years and years and putting life into practice and practice into life. Experiencing relationship with a whole community of people in their lives. Witnessing marriages and deaths and births and divorces and tragedies of all kinds. Feeding everything through practice and everything through Dharma and everything through Zazen, the furnace of Zazen. Trying to do everything to, aid the digestion, to aid the composting, and still coming to a point where I can't eat anymore. I need to go for a walk. I need to sleep it off. I need to digest. So, what happens? If you commit to that practice of digestion, of composting, if you do all of those things to aid in that digestion and that composting, what happens? Well, at some point, maybe like a bear waking up in the spring, you notice a funny sensation in the depths of your guts. Oh, what's that? Hunger. I think I'm ready to eat again. But it's like the muscles can be sort of atrophied, the chewing and swallowing. And so we just start with something light, maybe a broth. And the body remembers. So, I don't know, 30 years into this practice, I see things differently. I'm realizing and witnessing the scale of time of a life of practice. That's something that was beyond my thinking. Since I came back to the Zen Center and started sending emails out, I was contacted by a member. Oh, actually not a member, a person who used to come to the Zendo early days when they were an undergraduate student. And this person was asking if we're still doing things because he's come back to Victoria. He's now a doctor, sort of specialist practitioner. He went off to other schools and finished his degrees and did externships and internships and specializations, and then decided he wanted to settle in Victoria. He's married, has a family. He was just a kid when he came, just a student. And for those of us who have been here for a long time, how many came through? And that's the scale of time of a life of practice. We need to, as a community and as individuals, to really cultivate the capacity to allow that. As a community, to recognize that as a pattern, that if we come together to offer this practice, this ritual technology, this awakening technology. Not everybody has sort of impulse control about how much they eat at any given time. Sometimes people will gorge themselves, and then it can seem kind of nauseating, and they need to step back. And sometimes we ourselves are just become so familiar with how to pick the best bits that we ourselves get full up. We're at our max, not a bite more. We need to go digest and integrate, sleep and rest and recover. One of the things that I found was really valuable in my own digestion was vow. When I stepped back from the Zen Center, I had a conversation with Genjo, and he said, "Do you want to give your robes back? Do you want to sort of step out of this practice and just sort of see what that's like?" And I said, "No, I've never had any impulse to do that." And today I'm grateful, because it was like when that grumbling started happening again, when that appetite started to return, I had a map. I had a rope that I could hold on to and kind of like, I know where to get that food. So following that line of vow, being of benefit to all beings, the Bodhisattva vow. And in the interim, I've explored all kinds of different practices, and they've all had many, many, many gifts, new vistas, new perspectives. And those things influence my practice today. And even so, when I sit down with myself and say, like, what is it about Zen? What is it about this awakening technology? In all that I've experienced, there's a consistency. There's an accessibility. There's a reliability, a stability to this simple practice of sitting. There is a consistent impact and depth of practicing, particularly in the form, in the context of this awakening technology, the form that's been passed down and refined and shaped for so many centuries. So for those who are just coming for the first time or are relatively new to practice, pace yourself. Learn to tune into your body, just like you're eating. Know how much is good for your body, how much you can digest. Know that you can step back if you're feeling overfull and digest, and that the buffet is always open. The Buddhist buffet is always open. I feel like I should have a shirt that says that. And for those of you that are returning after some time, it's good to see you. It's good to sit with you. It's good to share this space and this bottomless meal together again. Thanks for listening to Living Zen. This podcast is completely free, and I'd love to keep it ad-free. One small way you can help is by leaving a rating or a review. It actually makes a huge difference and helps other people too, maybe folks practicing far from a Zen center, to find these teachings when they're hungry for them.
If you'd like to go deeper, you can support this work and get extra talks and reflections over on my Patreon at the Red Mountain Way. If you're looking for a living Zen community, visit zenwest.ca. There's a free online orientation to Zen there, plus ways to sit with us. And if you want more personal guidance, help with integrating your own practice, or just sorting through life's bigger meals, I also work one-on-one through Monarch Trance Work. Blessings on your way, and thanks for being here.